Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Qala rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa halul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Amin. My esteemed audience, Alhamdulillah, let us together give thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because with His bounty and permission, we can meet together in this online platform for an online conference, the first multidisciplinary conference of Muamalat. It is my pleasure to welcome all the participants from multidisciplinary field who are willing to share their ideas regarding issues in management, accounting, business, economics, information technology, and other related fields. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank respected Dr. Abdul Rahim bin Ridwan, which is a young economic scholar, for the keynote address and to his support for this inaugural project of the Kulliyyah Muamalat and Sains Pengurusan KMS Sultan Abdul Halim Muazzam Shah International Islamic University, UniSHAMS. I also would like to thank the committee for inviting me to officiate this first multidisciplinary conference of Muamalat. Ladies and gentlemen, management theories evolved throughout the 20th century. But as recent advancement in accounting disciplines, data collection, and data analytics have joined the mix, the science of business management is at the forefront of a new pace. Early management concept in the modern era focus on people-centric business process and later turn to the technology as a source for operational efficiency improvement. Now we are in the midst of information, in the midst of the information age, a period when the ability to manage information determines the success of companies. The competitive state are growing as corporate management proficiency is accelerating. In the information age era, there is embedded of the science of business management in corporate technology system and standardized business process. Business management trend within the information age era are fundamentally shifting toward better managing and leveraging enterprise risk for strategic differentiation and organizational success. The combination of advance in business school education, data sources, information technology, actuarial science, consultant advice, and insurance advisory service is a vastly changing business management discipline today. Collectively, to be more effective in assessment and management of corporate challenge. With regard to that, KMS also does not want to be left behind in its efforts to give full commitment and support in developing the related industry. Hence, KMS will always help to elevate the related industry in Malaysia through relevant program. The organization of this conference is one of the platform to digest and coordinate current issues related to management, accounting, business, economic, and information technology towards the result of truthful decision in helping the related industry. Through cultivating the spirit of creativity and innovation, it appears needs to increase studies and research involving all levels, including regulators, practitioners, and academicians, to strengthen the understanding. Besides, there is also an urgent need to create a greater awareness among market participants through research, calculation, and training. In addition, any matters of widespread disagreement should be reviewed and re-evaluated in order to achieve a better solution. Ladies and gentlemen, as one of the platforms discussing contemporary issues, I would like to take these opportunities to urge everyone involved in the related industry to take the initiative to lead the industry in a more sustainable and precise decision and direction. As responsible citizens, we not only strive for material gain but also have a responsibility to contribute to the well-being of the country and ummah in general, inshallah. Appreciation of efforts to further strengthen the related industry should be instilled in the soul of each so that it become a continuous practice, inshallah. So wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Greetings. I am Dr. Abdul Rahim bin Rizwan from UiTM Malacca. First of all, I would like to wish thank you to the committee of the conference who have put their trust to me to present a keynote speech which is about the economic impacts of COVID-19. So, as for the introductions of my topic, I would like to give a bit overview about what is actually the important parts of sharings that I would like to share with all of you. Okay, first of all, according to Department of Statistics, March 2020, we saw that there is a significant shift in the economic conditions of the people and the substantial changes in consumption as well as the expenditure pattern. Okay, and this is due to the COVID-19. As for this keynote speech, I would like to address the impacts of COVID-19 for the Malaysia economy based on the first one, level of saving, the second one based on income, and the third one based on consumption and expenditure behavior due to the movement control order from both individual and the sectoral perspective. Okay. First, let us see based on the levels of savings. According to these figures, what we can see here is that for the self-employed person, 71.4% of those self-employed have sufficient saving of less than 1 month. Okay, this figure is quite big, all right, and this shows that how many people who are self-employed does not really have a sufficient saving for themselves even for the less of 1 month. As based on private sector employees, about 82.7% of those employed in the private sectors have sufficient saving of less than only 2 months. And as for GLC and MNC employees, we found that at least 78.9%, as for MSC, about 75.2% have the less sufficient of savings of less than 4 months. So these groups of people have more saving and prepared for the consequences of the COVID-19. And of course, through this outcome, okay, I think the government need to have some strategies on how to help to reduce, okay, the impacts of COVID-19 to the employments, as we see that many people have insufficient amounts of saving. Okay, so based on this slide, we would like to see how much the levels of saving that these three types of groups of people have in order to face with the consequences of COVID-19. The first group is the self-employed, okay, which is about 70.1% having saving less than 1 month. As for private sector employees, it is about 82.7%, which have a saving of less than 2 months. As for GLC MNC employee, we have 78.9% for GLC and 75.2% of MNC who have saving less than 4 months. So this indicates that those who are vulnerable of having very little amounts of saving and need to face the consequences of COVID-19 are the self-employed, and they are at the alarming rates. So I'm sure that there's a need of attention from the governments in order to ensure that the impacts of COVID-19 will not be hard enough for this group of people. Okay, so based on the diagram that I have showed just now, basically we can see that the most vulnerable group is the self-employed group, followed by private sector, and then the JLC employees. And from this trend, we should conclude that there is a need for additional reinforcement from the government, such as incentive and financial literacy program for this group of people in order for them to have more effective financial planning. Okay, and additional support may be provided by establishing financial safety net going forward, especially in the case of contagion. And as for the perspective of employment duration, those in employ for less than a year are the most vulnerable, potentially managing newly acquired debts from asset financing, and this possibly dealing with student debt as well. So the recent extensions of the movement control order implemented by the government in order to contain the spread of the pandemic is expected to have a devastating financial impact on the market. And the data indicates that the vast majority of people are not financially equipped to withstand the effects of the economics of the extensions. And from the diagram, what we can see here is that about 69.7% who are working less than 1 year having a savings of less than 1 month. And this is truly alarming state. However, for those who are already working between 21 to 30 years, about 11.4% have the savings of at least 4 months. So, of course, if this COVID-19 is prolonged, and the savings of these people will become lesser and lesser, and this is not this will lead towards a worse scenario. And from what we have learned from the current uh, government national budget of 2021, as the government now allows the people to withdraw their EPF, okay, for about 6,000 ringgit for 12 months with 500 ringgit per month in order to them to have money to sustain their livings. I think that is one of the ways on how to ensure the people still have the money and use the money for their livings. Okay, so what is the levels of awareness among the different groups of workers if the government would like to extend the movement control order? So based on this diagram, what we can see here is that 81.9% of the self-employed group people are not prepared financially. So this is, I think, can be predicted based on what we have just now. Even this group, they are very vulnerable because of their savings very low. And 71.3% are employers who are not prepared financially. 61.9% are from private employees. As for GLC employees and MNC employees, they are about 45% and 34.9%. They have more secured in terms of their saving and finance. So that's why they are more ready if the movement control order is extended by the government. Okay, so however, if
the situation worsened and there is a need for a complete lockdown over a sustained period, the subsequent impact is expected to be very overwhelming for almost all segments, having indicated a substantial of vulnerability. And regards to the graph just now, we can see that the data from assessing segmental readiness for the enhanced MCO, or what we call as total lockdown, with the existing financial resources available is more encouraging, although still cause for concern. At least 1 in 2 self-employed individuals and employers are not ready for a total lockdown. Although GRC and MNC employers or employees are better off, 1 in 4 have indicated that they were not prepared. So this is the diagram that actually show the readiness for an enhanced movement control order. As what we see here, 51.1% of the employer are not ready. And then we have 50.4% of the self-employed who are not ready. As for private employees, we have 36.9%, GLC employees about 26.5%, and MSC employees, which is about 25.1%. So the MSC and GLC have lesser, they are more basically not affected much on the enhanced movement control order, maybe because of the stability of the job, of the income, as compared to the employees and self-employed. So according to these slides, we can check what is the state-wise vulnerability. With respect to the state-specific impacts, the states have been affected economically in varying degrees. The most severely affected and vulnerable state during the MCO includes Sabah, which is 66.7%, followed by Kelantan, 65.5%, and Perlis, which is 64%. In terms of the sectoral analysis by the industry, it is clear that certain sectors are more vulnerable and fragile due to the effects of COVID-19. And here we can see about 21.9% of the of these agriculture sectors have been affected due to COVID-19 in terms of the job loss, and about 6.7% for industrial. As for services, it is about 50%. And here indicates that agriculture sectors are the most affected sectors that being hit by COVID-19, and more people are losing their job due to the pandemics. Okay, so from the agriculture sectors that we have discussed just now, about 21.1% affected are from agriculture and plantations. As for fishing, they recorded the highest one, the one that affected the most, in terms of job loss. And then we have 90.8%, which is under the categories of farming, and forestry and logging is about 11.3%. So here we see that 1 in 5 workers have lost their job working in plantation and farming, impacting the overall agriculture sectors, with a concerning 21.9% of those who had lost their source of income. Now let's look the divisions of sectors that affected under the categories of industrial. So the industrial sector was found less vulnerable with only 6.7% loss in job, and the construction subsector was the hardest hit with 11.8%. So then we have like mining inquiry with 6.8%, and manufacturing are 4.2%. And then we have electricity, gas and steam, which is about 5.3%. And then we have water supply, sewerage, waste management, which is about 5.5%. So this is how the COVID-19 affect the industrial sector, as revealed in this industrial sector by subsector lost job statistics. Okay, so now we look into the service sector by the subsector lost job statistics. Here, the impacts of the job for the service sector was on average 50% of the job loss. Due to the MCO, the arts, entertainment and recreation subsector is severely impacted, and most vulnerable subsector within service with staggering 38% of the lost job. And with restrictions on gathering and movement, this subsector was significantly exposed to income losses due to COVID-19. Meanwhile, the food services sector also faced a considerable decline as the majority of the population has been forced to remain indoors. And whilst online order food service have continued through the orders and delivery, many restaurants have closed completely over the lockdown period. And with many operating informally and others on sensitive cash flow, shock of this nature have forced the layoff, with the real impact still to be determined. And the food service subsector shed 35.4% of the job during this period. Now, with respect to the changes in income received based on sectoral analysis, it was found that among employees in the agriculture sector, the fishing subsector recorded almost 80% of respondents experiencing a reduction in income, while only approximately 20% reporting no income changes. Okay, now we look into the changes in spending patterns of the daily needs before and during COVID-19 outbreaks. Okay, based on these slides, okay, the statistics confirm that COVID-19 pandemic has indeed changed the Malaysian economic behavior. A significant change has been documented in the consumption and spending patterns of the major income groups in the country. Priorities have changed with more emphasis on items of needs, and the analysis of the data indicate that the impact is felt across the demographic, across the income earning ages and levels of income. And although it is uncertain as to how long this impact will be experienced and also unknown as to its severity, when combining this with the early statistic of the job losses and income loss, this may suggest a longer lasting economic impacts. This impact in turn may result in a formidable change in economic behavior, with changed consumption pattern indicating a new economic behavioral norm for Malaysian citizens at least. Okay, and overall, there are significant changes in daily needs spending before and during the COVID-19 outbreak. The total household expenditure, which consists of both consumption expenditure and the non-consumption expenditure, dropped significantly to 2868 per month during the MCO, compared to pre-COVID-19 figures of 6398 per month. Okay, now continue from what we have discussed just now. Once divided further into a different income group, the low income group or the B40 decreased household expenditure from an average of 2,942 for the pre-COVID-19 to the 1514 per month, or approximate 80% of the reductions, which is, I think, is quite a lot. And for the M40 or the middle income group, expenditure also reduced by approximately 50% from an average of 6189 during or pre-COVID-19 to only 2943. The change in expenditure patterns of the upper income groups or the T20 was mostly significant, as they have decreased the household expenditure from the average of 14053 to just 5538, and this is almost a third of their pre-COVID spending pattern, and it is expected to cause the most substantial knock-on effects on the nation economy. Now, this expenditure behavior may be segregated further into only consumption expenditure without considering the non-consumption expenditure and other financial expenses. The Malaysian average dropped significantly by almost 50% to 2125 during the MCO, compared to the pre-COVID-19 figures of 4096 per month. Further analysis into the different income group indicating that the B40 consumption pattern have reduced the least by approximately 40% from an average of 2280, which is pre-COVID-19, to only 1352. And The M40 consumption patterns followed its total expenditure pattern by reducing by approximately 50% from the average of 4108 to 2245 per month during the pandemic. The T20 income was again the most substantial in reducing their consumption in expenditure from the average of 7863 pre-COVID-19 to only 3485 ringgit. Okay, now we look into these slides. Comparatively, the total expenditure based on the average household expenditure, which consists of both consumption and the non-consumption expenditure, has dropped significantly, which is negative 55% pre and during MCO. And this drop is larger in the non-consumption expenditure, which is negative 69% compared with the consumption expenditure, which is 48%. Okay, so from this diagram, actually we can see how serious the impacts of the COVID-19 toward the consumption activity or the expenditure activity from the household. That's the reason why when our ministers of finance announced the national budget 2021, where they have introduced the largest amounts of national budget in Malaysian history, and it has focused much more on boosting up the consumption by reducing the tax. Okay, so this is because we want to ensure that the consumption activity will be recovered and become higher next year, despite that we believe the vaccine will be around at that time, and there's a need, the huge needs of the consumption and expenditure from the government, from the household, in order to boosting back our economy so that we can generate more economic growth, which actually also help to increase more job opportunities and reducing the unemployment rate. Okay, so this is the last slide of my speech. Okay, we want to see what are the industry wise vulnerability magnitude comparison uh, of the impacts of the COVID-19. As for this diagram, it shows that the most vulnerable are the clothing and footwear industry, where there is a drop of 95% of their sales, as followed by the restaurant and hotel, which is negative 88%, and then we have transport of negative 89%. However, there is an increase of 27% for the food and non-alcoholic beverages. Okay, people will spend more for food and stuff during the COVID-19. Alright, so I think that's all from my presentation. I hope that you have received some kinds of new knowledge from this info, and thank you very much.